Another day, another story. California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency in response to the ongoing spread of bird flu among dairy cattle. The declaration is a sign of growing concern over the situation in California, which has become the epicenter of the nation's outbreak in cattle. More than 300 dairy herds have tested positive in California in the last 30 days alone. Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. The governor said that cases detected in dairy cows on farms in Southern California showed that expanded monitoring and a more coordinated statewide response is needed in response to the outbreak. This proclamation is a targeted action to ensure government agencies have the resources and flexibility they need, Newsom said in the statement. While the risk to the public remains low, we will continue to take all necessary steps to prevent the spread of this virus. California currently accounts for about half of known human infections in the U.S. There's no evidence of ongoing human-to-human spread in California or the rest of the country. But scientists warn that uncontrolled spread in dairy cattle heightens the risk of spillover into humans, which could give the virus a chance to acquire dangerous mutations. Dairy cows stand in a field outside of a milking barn at the U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Animal Disease Center research facility in Ames, Iowa. The move also comes on the heels of another troubling development, the country's first case of severe illness detected in a human. On Wednesday, officials with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shared additional findings about that infection in a resident of Louisiana who was hospitalized after being exposed to sick and dead birds in backyard flocks. Genetic sequencing indicates the H5N1 virus responsible for the illness belongs to a genetic lineage that's circulating in wild birds and poultry, different from what's spreading in dairy cattle and driving the majority of infections in agricultural workers. In the US, more than 60 people have been infected so far, although some research suggests the official tally may be an undercount. The illnesses linked to dairy cattle have largely led to mild illnesses in humans. The version of the virus in the Louisiana case is the D1.1 genotype. It has previously popped up in poultry workers in Washington state, who developed mild symptoms after testing positive in October. More recently, however, a teenager in British Columbia was hospitalized after contracting this D1.1 strain of the virus. Canadian health officials were unable to figure out how that person was infected. A 2005 electron microscope image shows an avian influenza A H5N1 virion. A pig at an Oregon farm was found to have bird flu, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said Wednesday. The case in southwest Louisiana was detected during routine flu surveillance and eventually sent to the CDC for confirmation. The case doesn't change the CDC's assessment that the risk to the general public remains low. Still, the hospitalization is a reminder that bird flu has a well-established history of leading to severe illness and death over the past 20 years in other countries, Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis with the CDC told reporters on Wednesday during a press call. Daskalakis said his agency is doing additional sequencing to look for any worrying changes in the virus that could signal it's evolving to better infect humans or cause more severe disease. Scientists were concerned that the case in British Columbia exhibited certain mutations that could spell trouble, although more research was needed to understand the exact implications. Daskalakis referred reporters to Louisiana officials conducting the investigation into the case for further details on how the person caught the virus and their symptoms. As with the Louisiana infection, most cases have been linked back to some kind of exposure to sick animals. Dairy cattle harbor high loads of virus in their milk, and that's suspected to be causing infections in farm workers. However, several cases have cropped up in the U.S. that can't be tracked back to infected farm animals, including in California and Missouri. Infections without a clear source of exposure do occur. Neither these cases nor the cases with known animal or animal products exposure have resulted in human-to-human transmission, said Daskalakis. December 18, 2024, a patient has been hospitalized with a severe case of avian influenza, a H5N1 virus, H5N1 bird flu, infection in Louisiana. This marks the first instance of severe illness linked to the virus in the United States. The case was confirmed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, on Friday, December 13. Since April 2024, there have been a total of 61 reported human cases of H5 bird flu reported in the United States. Partial viral genome data of the H5N1 avian influenza virus that infected the patient in Louisiana indicates that the virus belongs to the D1.1 genotype related to other D1.1 viruses recently detected in wild birds and poultry in the United States and in recent human cases in British Columbia, Canada, and Washington state. This H5N1 bird flu genotype is different than the B3.13 genotype detected in dairy cows, sporadic human cases in multiple states, and some poultry outbreaks in the United States. Additional genomic sequencing and efforts to isolate virus from clinical specimens from the patient in Louisiana are underway at CDC. While an investigation into the source of the infection in Louisiana is ongoing, it has been determined that the patient had exposure to sick and dead birds in backyard flocks. This is the first case of H5N1 bird flu in the US that has been linked to exposure to a backyard flock. A sporadic case of severe H5N1 bird flu illness in a person is not unexpected. Avian influenza H5N1 virus infection has previously been associated with severe human illness in other countries during 2024 and prior years, including illness resulting in death. No person-to-person spread of H5 bird flu has been detected. This case does not change CDC's overall assessment of the immediate risk to the public's health from H5N1 bird flu, which remains low. This case underscores that, in addition to affected commercial poultry and dairy operations, wild birds and backyard flocks also can be a source of exposure. People with work or recreational exposures to infected animals are at higher risk of infection and should follow CDC's recommended precautions when around animals that are infected or potentially infected with H5N1 avian influenza virus. This means that backyard flock owners, hunters and other bird enthusiasts should also take precautions. The best way to prevent H5 bird flu is to avoid exposure whenever possible. Infected birds shed avian influenza A viruses in their saliva, mucus, and feces. Other infected animals may shed avian influenza A viruses in respiratory secretions and other bodily fluids, for example, in unpasteurized cow milk or raw milk. As a general precaution, whenever possible, people should avoid contact with sick or dead animals, in particular wild birds and poultry. For individuals with direct/close contact with wild birds or sick or dead poultry or other animals, wear recommended personal protective equipment, PPE. Wild birds can be infected with avian influenza A viruses even if they don't look sick. Do not touch surfaces or materials, for example, animal litter or bedding material, contaminated with saliva, mucus, or animal feces from wild or domestic birds or other animals with confirmed or suspected avian influenza A virus infection. For more information on H5 bird flu in the US and CDC's response, including regularly updated case counts, visit the H5 bird flu current situation page. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.